right. I am so pleased to introduce today's second demo of the day with Pluralsight, exploring AI workforce transformation with Pluralsight skills. We have Merwin Moss, Principal Solutions Consultant at Pluralsight. He is here and he's going to guide us through the Pluralsight demo today. I'm going to pass it over to you, Merwin.
Thank
And we
you.
also have
Appreciate it.
Melissa here from the Pluralsight team. I'll mention she's going to help answer a few questions in the chat throughout the demo as well. So make sure to say hi to both Merwin and Melissa.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today about how to unlock and maximize the potential of your team with Pluralsight AI solutions. Everywhere we turn today, we're constantly inundated with headlines about AI, the impact it will have on the world, and the legislation regarding AI. Organizations really need a better way to position themselves for the opportunity ahead. Many organizations are actively thinking about deploying AI technologies, with 55% planning on deploying in the next year. In fact, 17% of organizations plan to increase their budget allocations in the next 12 months. However, 90% of executives don't have an effective way to understand their team's proficiency. And getting to that understanding is easier said than done. AI is not like anything we've dealt with before. It's unpredictable, there are no experts, and scale amplifies risk. AI is much less predictable than traditional software or hardware. Outcomes are usually determined by specific programming instructions, but generative AI can produce a wide range of outputs based on the data it's trained on and the algorithms it uses. Results are dynamic in nature, and this often leads to surprising and creative results. So in short, AI really brings almost as many mistakes, issues, and risk as it does benefits. There are also few experts in generative AI. So there are some best practices, but they're only a few months old. Everyone is looking how to figure out this right now and looking for guidance. Another part of this is that scale really amplifies everything. So these mistakes that can occur, they can result in security, infrastructure, legal, and sometimes even ethical issues. So companies that don't educate themselves are even at more risk. All companies will be affected by this, whether you're building your own generative AI tools or paying vendors to leverage their tools. So what's the right approach? We've heard time and time again with conversations with our customers that companies are doing one of two things: opening it up with no guardrails or heavily restricting it. Some organizations will open things like Microsoft Copilot or ChatGPT to everyone and then see what happens. Others restrict it completely, while a select few experts determine the path forward. To put a number on this, 81% of executives have formally deployed or plan to formally deploy AI-related tools and technologies. But to actually innovate, drive value, and stay competitive, organizations need more than just technology. They need skill development as well. The right answer is to invest in making sure your people in all roles know how to use the technology. So let's face it, we wouldn't be having this conversation unless you were one of the organizations that's already decided to upskill their employees. If you haven't already, you're going to encounter barriers in the Gen AI space. All content providers are not created equal. When we look at our competitors, they're making oftentimes a few mistakes that are major. Sometimes they're too technical. Even for general practitioners curious about ChatGPT, they're getting under the hood with algorithms, probability distribution, and scalable vector machines. You really don't need any of that to use generative AI or ChatGPT. Sometimes it's too generic. AI is often being taught with trivial examples like write a poem, write a packing list, or the worst offender is act like a marketing professional and write an email campaign. At Pluralsight, we think we can do better than simply teaching people to ask generative AI to do their job. Third mistake is that there is a ridiculous amount of generative AI content out there clogging up the marketplaces. So you'll look at Joe Schmo, for example, who's writing about ChatGPT, but he's not engaging with customers like you and grappling with the technology as they run into those issues. So I firmly believe we are engaging our customers with content that's relevant for them. So why Pluralsight? At Pluralsight, we have Gen AI content tailored to and designed for specific users and how they engage with AI. So we think about the relevant audiences of that content, whether it's practitioners, builders, leaders, and then it's not just video-based content. It's also hands-on experiences that allow for the learner to be able to work in a real-world environment. For example, we have AI sandboxes to provide an immersive hands-on experience to practice and explore AI tools, services, and solutions in an isolated pre-built environment. With 3 unique experiences, learners can build real-world AI expertise and validate practical experience without jeopardizing your live production environment. The first example is prompt sandboxes. So learners can master the tools and techniques of large language models and do it in a centralized location right at their fingertips. The second one is our AI cloud sandboxes. So learners can jump into and experiment with AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, and practice their skills using the cloud provider's AI services. Pluralsight takes care of the costs, the security, and then managing those sandboxes as well. The third one is SageMaker Studio Notebook. So learners can spin up a Jupyter notebook with a click of a button, experiment with all machine learning development steps, from preparing data to building, training, and deploying AI models. But let's get into a demo where I can show you this firsthand. So what we're looking at here on the screen is an element of pre-curated learning journeys that we have devised for key roles. And so when we think about this, we're getting a foundational level of artificial intelligence and providing the video-based courses for learners to engage in. As you can see, a variety of courses within this path. It's about 6 hours long. But there's an important aspect at the top right-hand corner that I want to bring your attention to. This is a concept called skill IQ. This allows for you to be able to measure the proficiency within that area and then understand your proficiency against technologists that are out there. In fact, we've had 6 million plus people take skill IQ within the Pluralsight platform. What it does is allow me to understand this proficiency and the band in which I stand, but also a score that ranges anywhere from 0 to 300. This is an adaptive assessment, meaning if I get a question right, it gets harder. If I get the question wrong, it gets easier. And then within 18 to 22 questions, it gives me this proficiency level. The output of the skill IQ is the most important element for upskilling for that learner. When we see the output of the skill IQ, we can see that we are provided with a personalized skill analysis. This helps us to understand our strengths and our opportunities for improvement. So within artificial intelligence foundations, you can see that my opportunities for improvements or gaps are analyzing the impact of artificial intelligence on business or evaluating the benefits of artificial intelligence for IT operations. The beauty of the Pluralsight offering is that it expedites the learning journey and creates efficiencies. So from taking this skill IQ, I'm able to identify specific areas to focus on to improve. So instead of taking an entire course that, as you've seen, can be an hour or multiple hours long, I can focus on the specific clips and modules that are most relevant for me to close that gap in knowledge and then use it in my day-to-day. So this is the first element of Pluralsight, giving the ability for learners to assess their skills and then engage in content, learning, and moving forward in their understanding of artificial intelligence. We also bolster that experience by providing hands-on experiences within the AI space. So for example, we can provide prompt sandboxes where we can prompt various LLMs, and we have a variety to choose from, whether ChatGPT, Jurassic, Claude, or Llama. We can query to get a full understanding of the comparisons between two LLM models to understand what the output looks like, the number of tokens that are used in the experience, and the cost as well. Keep in mind that this cost is not uh, uh, put on the organization itself that's using it. Pluralsight fronts all of those costs as a part of a subscription license. So the developer gets to learn more about what it would be like if they were to apply this to an application. They're able to spin these up and access them for up to 8 hours, and then they can spin up to 3 sessions per day. They also get visibility into the number of tokens that are used within the session, and again, the session cost. Additionally, we're providing an API key. So if you're thinking about having an experience in querying in something like Postman, for the more intermediate to advanced learner, they have access to that API key as well. So very helpful for that learner. Furthermore, we can also change the parameters of the LLM. So if we want to tinker to get specific types of output, it's a free, risk-free environment to do so. We also have AI cloud sandboxes. And so these AI cloud sandboxes allow us to think about using various services that exist within AWS, GCP, and Azure, whether that's AWS Bedrock, Azure OpenAI Studio, or GCP Vertex AI. These AI cloud sandboxes are available for up to 2 hours. And then we also have the SageMaker Studio Notebook. When we think about the SageMaker Studio Notebook that I have populated here, we can look at this and see that we have a variety of materials that are available to us. And not only do we have pre-built models that a learner could spin up on a moment's notice, we also have Jupyter Lab notebooks that are available for the learner to engage in. If you think about this experience, typically for a learner, they would have to install all of this software on their own desktop or laptop. In this instance, it's all ready to go at a click of a button. So for the sake of this demonstration, I have opened up a Jumpstart model. And what we're looking at is all of the available public models that are available. And then I've chosen to look at a TensorFlow model. So we can click on TensorFlow and more specifically look at image classification. Getting a better idea, the learner can come in, read the description, understand why they would use a model like this, and then begin to apply it as they learn more. So they can deploy the model. Once they've deployed the model, they can also open up a Jupyter notebook and see the code itself. This is really important because they don't have to necessarily know all of the coding steps as they start, but they can get a better idea as the framework as to how this would be presented. And then they can run the code and tinker with it as well, changing parameters to get various outputs as desired. Again, these are available for learners to engage in repeatedly within 2-hour increments. So this is really helpful in the learning experience. Now, additionally, we want to think about how we can, as an organization, look at the overall landscape that exists in the learning space and think about how we measure our progress, because organizations who really think about what they measure are most successful. So Pluralsight focuses on this heavily for leaders within organizations. First, you can use a strategy to understand the organization by baselining your capabilities via the skill IQ that we covered. Once you have a baseline of the organization, you can build learning programs to help have everyone take content that's available to them. And then from there, they can reassess to understand their skill uplift. What we're looking at here is a skills inventory. The skills inventory helps us to understand how many people have engaged in specific types of content over the period in which we're looking within the platform. It allows us to see how many people have assessed via skill IQ, as well as how many have reassessed. We can also see incremental growth in skill acquisition as people reassess and upskill from one quintile to the next. And you can see that we are breaking this down into 5 areas, whether novice, emerging, average, above average, or expert. And so we can see the breakdown and distribution across all important technologies, including generative AI and ChatGPT, for example. We can use this very strategically within our organizations to think about how many people that we need in order to be successful towards key initiatives and strategic goals within the organization. As we scroll down, we can also see that composition of skill capabilities in various topics, even beyond AI. We can see the number of content interactions that learners within the organization have had. We can also see that some learners have not assessed themselves, and that's not a problem. In fact, we can invite learners to take those skill assessments proactively through the platform as well. It's also a good time to point out that not all of the analytics here have to stay persistent just in the platform itself. Organizations that want to take it to another level can combine the data that exists within the platform via our API as well as CSV to include it in business intelligence tools. The benefit of this is that they can combine various data sources, not only Pluralsight, with other data sources to have a more holistic picture of the landscape as they progress. If we take this a step further, we can think about this from a skills inventory perspective on a specific area. So here we're looking at generative AI and the number of users that have engaged in generative AI. And then we are also providing the average skill growth over time. So we can see from the first to the last in the organization, we've moved from an average level to an above average level. Furthermore, we can see the skill breakdown across the organization as we would expect, less novices, more experts as we begin to transition the organization towards having greater proficiency levels. If we scroll down, we can also break down each one of the assessments that exist here, and we can get a better understanding of the initial skill level of an individual. And then furthermore, as they progress, take additional content, look at various hands-on experiences to practice those real-world things that they're not doing in production, they can assess themselves and see that uplift in skill development. It's a really good opportunity for leaders to have one-on-one conversations as well, and career development conversations. Sometimes it's also applicable for role mobility. So I wanted to bring this to your attention to let you know that these kind of capabilities are available within the Pluralsight platform, offering a really holistic experience where it starts with assessing a person's capability, baselining their knowledge, following up with video-based content that is applicable to specific roles, whether that is going to be a practitioner, a builder, or a leader, and then having them move into hands-on experiences and then using the analytics that are provided within the Pluralsight platform to measure that uplift organizationally. I've gone through a lot of content here in a very short period of time, but I do want to pause and see if there are any questions in the chat that I could answer.
We have a question from Russell. Do you want me to read this to you?
Sure, if you don't mind.
Lots of recent focus, especially executive orders on AI development and ensuring that folks are incorporating good ethics and logic into their generative AI use. How does Pluralsight ensure that when you are using AI in your platform, that is something that's being incorporated, or that's something that you could guarantee to clients? How would you answer that?
Mhm. Understood. Yeah. So within Pluralsight, we have an AI council, and that AI council really focuses on making sure that everything is ethical. And so we validate every kind of feature that we put in the platform for those aspects. And then also look to impart that information and knowledge with our customers as well. We have a variety of paths and courses within the platform that speak more towards ethics and how to use Pluralsight or how to use AI ethically within their own organization. So, I mean, Russell, you bring up a really important point, and it is something that Pluralsight thinks about when it's talking with its customers.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that. That is something that you could just incorporate as an actual learning path for your own organization. If your organization is working on discovering how to use AI responsibly, ethically for themselves and their own organization. So that's a cool opportunity. Okay, let me double check. Are there other questions from folks coming in? No. Let me ask you about this skills inventory for folks who are interested in this, but maybe they don't have something like this set up. Does your team have an ability to help folks with some of that setup if they want to create and design that skill inventory, but just
Yeah.
don't really have anything to build off of yet?
Absolutely. So there's a couple of ways that we go about this, one of which is an onboarding process to help leaders and admins of a plan begin to push this out to their organizations. And so one of the steps within there is to baseline your capabilities, understand what skills are necessary, and then have those folks take skill IQs. For those who also are larger organizations, we also work with them and provide them with a customer success manager. And so they look to help the organization to provide the right messaging and to have what we call skill blitzes. And as part of that skill blitz, we look to have people then baseline those their knowledge capabilities. And so that will ultimately build out the inventory as to where their skills stand today.
We have another question about falling under this bucket for skills inventory and skills IQ, how you're defining some of this terminology: beginner, emerging, average. And I'm curious if that's something that you can customize. So if it's something that you want to tweak from skill to skill in
Mhm.
your organization, or just like what are the options are there? There's a little bit more context to Alex's question there, just how
Mhm.
exactly the taxonomy was developed, but I think your response will probably answer his follow-up questions.
Yeah. So what we really think about is like, how do we structure an assessment that is comparative in nature? So you ask, what is beginner versus emerging versus average? Skill IQ is an assessment that compares all those who have taken a skill IQ. So it's a comparative measure when we talk about beginner. And it allows them to see how they compare to every other technologist. So are they a beginner to other technologists? Are they an emerging compared to other technologists? And so that's how that's devised there.
All right. There was a little bit more to that question in terms of how do we know that what you're calling skills are actually skills? Is there any more context that you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what we do as a part of this is look at something called reverse job task analysis. So for any given technology, we're trying to understand, what are those skills by working with various uh, folks out in the field that can help us to understand exactly what those skills are in order to become a practitioner in that given technology. And then we build a blueprint accordingly, which then allows us to then create a content mapping where we use over 1,500 authors as part of our author network to create the content and apply it to that reverse job task analysis. So that's how we pinpoint the specific skills.
I'm going to jump to Anne's question and then go to Valerie's question, Valeria's. So Anne was asking about how the data is kind of collected. Do you aggregate it and anonymize it? For example, she's saying customer A anonymized with customer B to generate the categories, but only customer A would see their own customer A data. That makes
Yeah,
sense?
so that's a great question. Everything that we're looking at from a data perspective, like the skills inventory, you see also various other categories that you could look at in terms of users, usage, content, certifications. This is all plan specific to your organization. So when you get a plan, it's for your organization. You can divvy up the data so that you can also create an organizational structure. So this will allow you to have reporting in the ways that you want to see it, by department or by team, however you would like that.
And then can you give some examples of some of your most common use cases that Pluralsight has with the clients for someone who's still trying to imagine how this might fit best or where they might get started in their own company?
Yeah, I mean, I think all of our customers really start at a very different place and we try to meet them where they're at. So a lot of that is a conversation about what does skill development look within your organization today? What is the culture behind skill development? And then those conversations can also then lead into strategies to get started. A lot of times when we work with organizations that are not necessarily being strategic, it's very much learner driven. But what you find in those learner driven situations is that they're not getting the engagement that they desire. And so it has to become a little bit more formalized with better communication as to the why behind it for everyone. And when that is articulated from a top down perspective, then you get more buy-in and it allows for the overall organization to become more strategic in accomplishing their goals and initiatives.
Awesome. Well, I am not seeing any new questions popping in yet. So I'll turn it back over to you if you have any closing thoughts before we wrap up our second demo of today.
I definitely appreciate all of your time. Please engage Pluralsight if you are interested in learning more about our product and how we bring skills development to organizations.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I'm seeing Emily, your questions are just rolled in. If you already done mapping for your specific competencies, can you apply those into this skills inventory for Pluralsight?
I think that's a great question. So when you say specific competencies, um, I believe that you would be saying like you already have an understanding, or are you trying to figure out an understanding of their skill proficiencies?
I think she means that they've already broken down the skill into the specific elements or competencies that define or make up that skill.
Got it. So The skill IQs are pretty static as they stand right now. They can't necessarily be, pre-configured or configured with alternative skill sets included in them. But what we do is look to map what specific competencies you have with things like skill assessments that we have in the platform, and then allow for them to then engage in those skill IQs. But we can
Okay.
also have a further conversation about what that looks like as if we can engage and have a conversation beyond this today.
Awesome. Yeah, very helpful information. Thank you, Emily, for that question. Thank you to all of our attendees for asking great questions as you're thinking about how this might fit into your organization. Thank you again to Pluralsight and Merwin. Everyone, go take a quick break, and we will see you all at 1:30 Eastern Time in 15 minutes for our third demo with ELB Learning. Thanks, everyone.